All right, here we go. Welcome into Philadelphia Eagles Now. Hope all of your weeks are going in grand fashion as we have quite the NFC Championship game to continue to talk about all throughout the week. Top two teams in the NFC, both with historic franchise histories, great fan bases as well, and two rosters that are straight up loaded with some future Hall of Fame, Pro Bowl, and All-Pro level talent. It's San Francisco on the road against Philadelphia Sunday in the NFC Championship game for the right to play in Super Bowl 57. As for what we're getting into on today's show, according to Albert Breer, Philadelphia making an aggressive play for Vic Fangio if Jonathan Gannon gets a job elsewhere. We're going to look at some of the key matchups to watch in this football game because there's so much talent, and thanks to all of you for watching because that means that you're a certified real one. Before we dive into everything on the Eagles docket, make sure you subscribe. With this video alone, trying to get to 40,000 subscribers. Being able to talk birds on the daily since taking over the channel prior to the season has been a huge honor for me growing up in the Philadelphia area, and here they are. 7th NFC Championship game in the last 21 years. 2nd since 2017 with another opportunity to put a Lombardi trophy on the shelf at the NovaCare Complex. Please show us some love and subscribe to stay informed year-round on the birds. As for why you should subscribe, if you're coming to us for the first time, daily Eagles videos. We're not behind a paywall. Everything is free. We'll do news, rumors, and analysis. When breaking news happens, we have you covered with really in-depth level content. We do live shows and watch parties like we'll be doing on Sunday for the NFC title game, and all of our coverage and our content is entertaining and informative. All right, we start off with this. Vic Fangio. Are the Eagles making an aggressive play for one of the best defensive coordinators in the sport? According to Albert Breer, Eagles could look to make an aggressive play for a guy who is going to have a wide market during the upcoming coaching carousel. This will only happen if Jonathan Gannon, who is interviewed with the Houston Texans and could be an Arizona Cardinals candidate, departs as the Eagles' current defensive coordinator and gets a job elsewhere. He is not going to be let go by Nick Sirianni, who vouched for him and backed him up after Saturday's game against the Giants, basically talking and calling out the criticism from Angelo Cataldi and others because Gannon has put up very good defensive numbers this year. So this is only going to happen. Vic Fangio coming to his home state of Pennsylvania as he grew up in Dunmore if Jonathan Gannon goes elsewhere. And Fangio is going to have opportunities with Philadelphia potentially if Gannon does depart or with other teams across the NFL because his fingerprints and his defensive style really sprinkled across the entire National Football League for him being a defensive savant. Now, this report, as I said, did come from Albert Breer. Here's what he had to say. Vic Fangio is a name you'll hear a lot in the coming weeks for defensive coordinator positions. I'd expect Mike McDaniel and the Dolphins to make an aggressive play, as would the Eagles if they lose Gannon. More from Breer. Bear with us here because this is really important in the context of all of this. Though Fangio has been granted his own access to the NovaCare Complex in South Philly because he is currently contributing remotely as a consultant, one could surmise he is helping with the game plans in some capacity, but does not have a role in the live game day action and isn't working at NovaCare. One can also wonder why word of Fangio's involvement didn't come to light a little bit sooner. Perhaps there is a concern about optics of Gannon being undermined, or perhaps the Eagles are just quietly preparing to replace Gannon with Fangio if Philly's defensive coordinator ends up getting a head coaching job in the 2023 hiring cycle. Gannon clearly drew interest last year after getting fired by the Broncos, interviewing for multiple openings before returning to the Eagles. There would be logic to Fangio eventually replacing Gannon, in addition to boasting an impressive resume. Fangio is a Dunmore, Pennsylvania native, 2 hours north of Philly, the neighboring town of Scranton. Shout out to the 570. Type it if you're from there. He also has a relationship with former Denver Broncos Vice President of Player Personnel and current Eagles Senior Personnel Director and Advisor to the General Manager, Matt Russell. Russell and Fangio overlapped in 2019 and 2020. So the back end, some just additional information there. But again, this is all important in the context of this conversation. And some of the takeaways there. You think Howie Roseman and the Eagles maybe moving in silence to keep it under wraps that they're interested in Vic Fangio because Jonathan Gannon has done a good job, and you don't want to disgruntle him because he's a current employee. And you don't want to undermine Gannon because this is flat out business culture optics. When you have a candidate in-house and a guy who's working for you on the payroll who's doing a quality job, you don't want there to be rumors and speculation out there that he's going to get replaced by a guy who's currently working for the organization as a consultant. It would just be weird. It would be ugly, and that's not how Jeffrey Lurie's Eagles run. That's why they're back in the NFC title game. So pick one. If you could pick a defensive coordinator for Philly, who would it be? JG for Jonathan Gannon. VF for Vic Fangio. Let us know down in the comment section. Fangio, one of the all-time greats, and Gannon has made massive strides and improvements from last year. Coming up next on the show, I'm excited to really get into the nitty-gritty. Some matchups to watch in this loaded NFC Championship game, which when you canvass the rosters, I think could be one of the best NFC title games that we've seen in recent memory because of how talented these teams are. First, though, really excited to partner up here on Eagles Now and at Chat Sports with Athletic Greens, a sponsor and a company that means a lot to me in prioritizing my health and really putting myself in a position to succeed professionally with my work-life goals, but also my athletic training regimen. I take AG1 every day, and you can get comprehensive and convenient daily nutrition at athleticgreens.com/chatsports. I gave AG1 a try because given my work schedule at Chat Sports combined with my training regimen, as I'm on a mission to run every day for a year straight, approaching 250 straight days right now, I just wanted sustained energy and to stay healthy by keeping my immune system strong so that I can strive toward my professional work life and personal fitness goals. I take AG1 every morning as part of my routine, and it really sets the table for the rest of my day. It's helped improve my gut health. It's boosted my energy. It supports my immune system and helps me recover since I'm putting such a toll on my body. I've also really prioritized my health, and I try to steer clear of chemicals and harsh ingredients, which is also why I love AG1 and its 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, and whole food source nutrients. I just mix one small scoop of AG1 with water and drink it first thing each morning or before and after my workouts. I also love that something this good for you in prioritizing your health and wellness, one life, one body, that's the motto, costs less than $3 per day. It's worth it. If a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. So head to athleticgreens.com/chatsports. That's athleticgreens.com/chatsports. Check it out. The link is in the comment section and the description of today's video. Now we shift gears and move forward here on today's show with the top matchups to watch in this NFC title game between Philadelphia and San Francisco. And I want to start with the Eagles offensive line pitted up against the Niners defensive line. These are two of the top respective offensive and defensive lines in the National Football League. Star power on both of them, premier talent along each line. And really, when you think about the overall team success for Philadelphia and San Francisco this year, it is hinged on these two position groups. The Eagles' offensive line here, every member of it named to an All-Pro team, was a Pro Bowler or a Pro Bowl alternate. Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Jason Kelce, Isaac Seumalo, Lane Johnson. Specifically with Kelce, one of the best centers of all time, Lane Johnson, the best right tackle in the game, Mailata, Dickerson, Mahler, so too is Isaac Seumalo. And the 49ers defensive line is good. It's versatile. They're led by who I think is going to be the defensive player of the year in Nick Bosa. Eric Armstead is a menace on the interior and can be a game destructor. Javon Kinlaw hasn't lived up to the expectations of being a former first-round pick, but is a very solid player. And Samson Ebukam, also a hybrid edge rusher who has some quickness. As for the latest on Charles Omenihu, arrested in San Jose by San Jose police because of suspicion of domestic violence. We'll continue to monitor that situation here on Eagles Now. He's a very good player who had a career-high 4.5 sacks this year. And this defensive line, it's going to have to stop this Eagles rushing attack, which rushed for nearly 270 yards against the Giants in the divisional round. Kenneth Gainwell popped off, 12 carries, 112. Miles Sanders, 17 for 90. Boston Scott, 6 for 32. All of them averaging more than 5 yards per carry. As a team, Philadelphia averaged more than 6 yards per carry. Eagles offensive line, the rushing attack, which Jalen Hurts should be included in this, going up against that Niners defensive line and defense, one of the key matchups to watch in this game coming up on Sunday. So who do you think has the edge here? I've got a lot of great responses in my Twitter mentions, on Instagram, and here in the comment section on Eagles Now, comparing Silicon Valley against South Philly. That's the matchup in this NFC title game. Who has the edge? CA for Silicon Valley, PA for South Philly. Have some fun with it. 49ers offensive line against the Eagles defensive line. Another matchup that is going to be key in this football game and could decide who wins and who loses. As for this 49ers offensive line, they're led like Lane Johnson is the best right tackle potentially all time at right tackle. Trent Williams is in that conversation for the blind side of Brock Purdy at left tackle. Aaron Banks has given up just 1 sack all year. Jake Brendel is a very, very good center. Spencer Burford was drafted out of UTSA. He's been terrific at right guard. And Mike McGlinchey struggled a little bit against Micah Parsons, but is probably a top 10, top 15 tackle in the sport. Outside of Trent Williams, some questions along this offensive line, despite the Niners being well coached up on that front and in a scheme that certainly favors them. And a big matchup to watch is going to be Hassan Reddick against Mike McGlinchey. McGlinchey was horizontal to the football field, thrown to the ground with one arm by Micah Parsons. And Hassan Reddick is a lot like Micah Parsons from an athletic specimen standpoint. This year, fantastic in the regular season, 16 sacks, 40 hurries, 26 quarterback hits to go along with 5 forced fumbles. So 49ers offensive line, Eagles defensive line, another matchup to pinpoint. So too is Brandon Ayuk against James Bradberry. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, kind of a 1A, 1B at that wide receiver spot. So I think that Bradberry and Darius Slay will be covering both Deebo as well as Ayuk. Both can play outside and inside. So you might see Ayuk going up against Bradberry. And for Ayuk, he's slippery, he's fast, he's quick. He has some of the best footwork among all wide receivers in the NFL, really good hands, and can pick up yards after the catch. A career season for him, 78 catches on the year for more than 1,000 yards for the third-year man. Drafted in the first round, same draft as Jalen Reagor, by the way. He's ended up being a much better player with 8 touchdowns. And on top of Bradberry going up against Brandon Ayuk, he'll be matched up against Deebo as well, who's also so physical in the open field with breaking tackles, leads the league in yak since coming into the league as a second-round pick out of South Carolina. So with Ayuk going up against Bradberry, you would at least assume, right? It's a fantastic matchup. Who wins it? LGB for Let's Go Brandon, JB for James Bradberry. Let us know down in the comment section. Also with the Eagles, they have a loaded offense, and this 49ers secondary a little bit of a question mark. So A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith against Diamador Lenore and Charvarius Mooney Ward. Huge matchup in this game as well, because you have 2 different prototypes at wide receiver for Philadelphia. A.J. Brown, the closest thing that we've seen to Terrell Owens since T.O. He's physical, he's fast, he can break tackles. He also has his getaway speed. Given his stature and his size, really special. Nearly 1,500 yards in the regular season. Devontae Smith, like Brandon Ayuk, a very clean route runner. And like Brandon Ayuk, he's slippery. Tough to bring down because of his speed. Not as physical as Ayuk, but his quickness, his explosiveness is a special trait, certainly. And had 95 catches this year. Dallas Goedert picking up yards after the catch against that secondary for San Francisco. Keep an eye on that. Jimmy Ward could be lined up against Goedert. Another good matchup in this game. And then it's Nick Bosa against Lane Johnson. Best pure edge pass rusher in the NFL, in my opinion, against the best right tackle in the sport, a guy who's putting together a Hall of Fame type of trajectory in Lane Johnson. This is premier player, all-pro, future Hall of Famer against premier player, all-pro, future Hall of Famer. 2 of the best at their crafts and 2 guys who pour so much into their pass blocking techniques in Lane Johnson, led by the best offensive line coach in the league in Jeff Stoutland, against a guy in Nick Bosa, who Mike McDaniel was quoted as doing pass rush moves on a water jug. That's how much he cares about his craft. And for Bosa, great year this year. I think he's Defensive Player of the Year. 18.5 sacks. That was number 1 in the NFL, right ahead of Hassan Reddick. Pro Football Focus, according to those numbers, he had 90 pressures on the season, 48 quarterback hits, an overall Pro Football Focus grade of 90.9, a pass rush grade of 90.9 as well, so equal there. A run defense grade of 81.1, so he's not just an edge rusher. He can really stack the box like a Brandon Graham and be stout against the run. He had 39 stops, and I think he's going to win Defensive Player of the Year. And him matching up against Lane Johnson, who's going to win the one-on-one duel? If you watch Baldy's breakdowns, he's probably gushing about this matchup because he's a big fan of both. And how could you not be? They're 2 potential GOATs. Lane Johnson, in the regular season 2022, 972 total snaps, 551 pass blocking snaps, only 6 penalties, 0 sacks allowed, goose egg for hits allowed on Jalen Hurts and Gardner Minshew with only 9 pressures. Cannot wait to see these two duke it out. So our next question, who wins in the trenches here at that edge spot? NB for Nick Bosa, the man they call the Bear, or is it the Lane Train in Lane Johnson? Let us know once again. More matchups to monitor here. San Francisco has to have disciplined pass rush lanes against Jalen Hurts. San Francisco has really struggled against mobile quarterbacks this year. Philadelphia is no doubt thinking about that in their game planning for this matchup. If Hurts gets outside or if he breaks contain right up the middle, could be a long day for this Niners defense. Another coaching matchup that I want to talk about is Kyle Shanahan against Jonathan Gannon. The creativity and the offensive genius of Kyle Shanahan cooking against Jonathan Gannon, who has to prove, after a great performance against the Giants, we'll give him credit, and the Eagles do have some great defensive numbers. We'll talk about those, but he has to prove he can win a game against a premier offensive unit. Now it's the time to do it for JG. It's the 49ers' number 1 rushing offense against the Eagles' number 15 rushing defense. I saw somebody chirp at me in the comment section saying, I took my like away because you said this Eagles rushing defense isn't good. They've been better since Ndamukong Suh and Linval Joseph. Yes, they have. But you can hit that thumbs up icon, like the video, and still admit that the Eagles' rushing defense does have some holes and questions. Yes, they were good against Saquon. Can they be good against Christian McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell, and Kyle Shanahan? We'll see. Christian McCaffrey, very good this year. Nearly 2,000 all-purpose yards this season through the air and on the ground. This guy is a special, special talent who will line up at slot receiver. He'll line up in the split back. They'll run 21 personnel with 2 backs and a couple of tight ends. They'll play smash mouth football, and he's also freakish with the ball in his hands, regardless of how Kyle Shanahan gets it to him. And Elijah Mitchell, he did only play 5 games this year, but in 15 career games, he has about 1,200 rushing yards. He is a very good number 2 back. Also, Niners linebackers against the Eagles offensive system. This 49ers linebacking core is tremendous. It's the best in the league. They're led by Fred Warner, who also is an all-timer. As we continue to talk about a bunch of all-timers on both sidelines in this matchup. But Dre Greenlaw and Azeez Al-Shire are also very good. They have this unbelievable speed where they can range up and down the field vertically against the run, against the pass, but also sideline to sideline and be game records. And I want to talk for Fred Warner here for a few moments. This guy is a freak. This guy, since being a third-round pick out of BYU, has been an all-pro. He's the best off-ball linebacker in the sport, and we saw that against the Cowboys. This was a legacy game for Fred Warner against Dallas in the NFC divisional round, and this one play really stood out on top of him playing so well against the rush, being a menace behind the line of scrimmage and causing destruction there, but also this play against C.D. Lamb in pass coverage, as good as it gets. So you'll see number 54 here lined up inside the box, showing blitz at the line of scrimmage. C.D. Lamb, on the other hand, is in the slot. And keep in mind where we're at in this football game. It's 9-9, San Francisco and Dallas all tied up. The ball at the 40-yard line. This is a critical 3rd and 5 for the Cowboys to potentially put points on the board. So you see where Warner starts. You see where C.D. Lamb is, who had one of the best seasons for wide receiver production this year and is an extremely fast athlete. Dak Prescott snaps the ball out of the shotgun. You see where CD is. You see how Fred Warner recognizes, oh shoot, in the defensive scheme that we're in, I have to jet back to cover CD Lamb out of the slot. CD Lamb has the advantage. Look at how much ground Warner has to pick up from hash to hash, but also vertically here. And in the blink of an eye, Fred Warner, with what seemed like 4.4, 4.5 speed, given he plays linebacker, is able to go stride for stride with C.D. Lamb right down the seam here for the pass breakup and force Dallas to punt. Not many linebackers in the NFL can do this. In fact, I don't think there are any that can do it. And Fred Warner is going to have to make plays like this against C.D. Lamb come Sunday against Philadelphia, and they're loaded with offensive weaponry, is Philly. So Fred Warner going to have to come to play. As for this Niners defensive line depth chart, it's a very good one. So too is the Niners linebacking core. So the front 7 here for the Eagles against the front 7 against the Niners, and then vice versa, depending on how you flip it on both sides of the ball, is going to be one of the best matchups we've seen among front sevens in the NFL, because you also have to give credit to TJ Edwards, Kaiser White, and technically Hassan Reddick plays a little bit of edge, and he plays linebacker as well. So, Eagles defensive line against the Eagles rushing attack, as I said, another key to this game, given what the Eagles were able to do on the ground, against the Giants. And you look at these numbers. We already showed them to you. We're not going to go through them all that much, but it's a good point to bring these rushing numbers up so that you can see them here because of this Eagles rushing offense against a very good Niners rushing defense. These are two of the top units in terms of running the football offensively for Philadelphia and stopping the run defensively for San Francisco. You look at the numbers here for the Niners. Yards per rush, they were 2 in the NFL, surrendering just over 3. Rushing yards per game, second ranked in the National Football League, under 78. Points per game, number 1, just over 16. Yards per game, number 1. Points per play, 0.27. This Eagles offense, it's been one of the most electric offenses we've seen in recent NFL memory. But this Niners defense has also been one of the best defenses we've seen in recent memory, which is really, really impressive considering it's a very pass-happy league. The Buccaneers got wiped by the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys offense was great in that game. In the wild card round, they couldn't do anything. Dallas offensively against this Niners defense. So who you got? PHI for the Eagles, SF for the San Francisco 49ers. Once again, get those game predictions into the comment section. And as always, appreciate you for being a part of the show. Don't forget to subscribe.